Everyone thinks they know Big Ben. But the moment the truth is revealed, one of London's most famous symbols begins to feel far deeper and more powerful than most people ever imagined. Some names are so famous that people stop questioning them. Big Ben is one of those names. The moment it is mentioned, most people picture London, the great tower beside Parliament, the glowing clock faces, and that deep, unforgettable sound moving through the air. It feels so familiar that it seems almost impossible that most people misunderstand it. But that is exactly where this story begins. Big Ben is not the name of the tower. It is not the name of the clock. Big Ben is the great bell inside the tower. The tower itself is now called Elizabeth Tower. That fact may sound small at first, but it changes the whole meaning of the story. Once that misunderstanding disappears, Big Ben stops feeling like a simple postcard image and starts becoming something much more interesting. A symbol built from history, precision, damage, survival, and memory. Welcome to English Mindwave. Before this journey continues, please subscribe to support the channel and help bring more meaningful stories like this in the future. What makes Big Ben especially powerful is that it is known not only by sight, but by sound. A tower can dominate a skyline, but a bell enters life more deeply. It marks ordinary hours. It breaks silence. It becomes part of celebration, routine, anxiety, and public memory. That is why Big Ben became more than architecture. Its voice became part of London's emotional landscape, and over time, part of Britain's wider identity. The answer begins in fire. In 1834, a devastating fire destroyed much of the old Palace of Westminster. This was not only the loss of an important building. Westminster stood at the center of British political life. It was tied to law, government, debate, ceremony, and the public image of the nation itself. When such a place is destroyed, the damage is more than physical. A country suddenly sees that even its most powerful institutions are not beyond loss. The fire did not only create ruins, it created a choice. Britain now had to decide how the visible heart of its political world would be rebuilt. Charles Barry was chosen as the architect, and Augustus Pugin played a major role in shaping the Gothic vision of the new Palace of Westminster and its great clock tower. Their work was not simply practical, it was also symbolic. The new building needed to look worthy of Parliament, worthy of history, and worthy of a nation that wanted to present itself as enduring even after disaster. This is where the story becomes larger than architecture. Buildings around political power are never only buildings. They are statements. They tell citizens how a state sees itself, and they tell the outside world what kind of civilization stands behind its laws. In the 19th century, Britain was one of the great powers of the age. Rebuilding Westminster therefore carried unusual weight. The new complex had to project seriousness, order, and permanence. The great clock tower emerged from that larger ambition. It would do more than decorate the skyline. It would give public form to order itself. In a century shaped by schedules, railways, industry, and discipline, a great public clock was not only useful, it suggested that time could be measured openly, shared publicly, and trusted collectively. Once that vision of rebuilding had taken shape, a deeper question appeared. What kind of clock could possibly deserve a place beside Parliament? The goal was not merely to place a large clock high above London. The goal was to create the most accurate public clock in the world. That detail says a great deal about the age that produced it. 19th century Britain was being transformed by railways, industry, administration, schedules, and expanding systems of public life. In such a world, precision was no longer just a technical preference. It was becoming a social value. Accuracy suggested trust, discipline, efficiency, and order. Figures like George Airy, the Astronomer Royal, helped set the demanding standards for the project, while Edmund Beckett Denison became central to making that ambition real. Denison's contribution was especially important. He invented the gravity escapement, the mechanism that allowed the clock to remain highly accurate even when outside forces, such as wind pressing against the hands, might otherwise interfere with its movement. Then there is one of the most memorable details in the story. Old pennies were used to fine-tune the pendulum. A single coin could change the speed of the clock by a tiny fraction of a second each day. It is such a humble image that it stays in the mind immediately. One of the world's most famous public clocks, adjusted with pennies. That detail reminds us that great systems are often sustained through small corrections, not only grand ideas. Reliable timekeeping may seem ordinary today, but shared time is one of the foundations of collective life. Institutions, travel, labor, government, and public coordination all depend on systems people trust. In that sense, the clock at Westminster did more than mark the hour. It represented a belief that order could be built and maintained through discipline, design, and precision. And yet, for all its brilliance, the story was still not ready to become legendary. Just when success appeared closest, failure entered through the bell itself. The first great bell made for the tower cracked during testing. That single event changes the emotional direction of the story. Up to that point, everything seems to move toward a perfect conclusion. A national disaster is answered by an ambitious rebuilding. Brilliant minds solve technical problems, and a new public symbol begins to rise with confidence. But history almost never unfolds so neatly. A second bell had to be made, and this bell would become known to the world as Big Ben. It was cast in 1858 at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry. Even the origin of the name carries a little uncertainty. Some linked it to Sir Benjamin Hall. Others connected it to the famous boxer Ben Conte. The exact answer remains debated, but that uncertainty somehow suits the symbol. Getting the bell into place was itself a dramatic achievement. It took more than 30 hours to haul it into the tower. By 1859, the tower was complete. The clock began operating on May 31st, and the bell chimed later in July. It must have felt, at last, as though the long effort had reached fulfillment. But once again, the story refused to become simple. Big Ben cracked too. This is the moment that gives the story its deepest emotional force. If the bell had remained flawless, it would still have been impressive, but it might not have become quite so meaningful. The crack threatened disappointment and embarrassment. Instead, the bell was turned so that the hammer struck a different place, and a lighter hammer was used. The ringing continued. More than that, the bell's unusual, slightly off-key sound became part of what made it distinctive. That detail is the heart of the story. The world did not come to love a perfect voice. It came to love a damaged one that endured. That is a different kind of greatness. It is not the greatness of untouched beauty. It is the greatness of survival under strain. Big Ben does not stand only for achievement. It also stands for repair. Its identity includes damage, but the damage did not silence it. That emotional truth would become even more powerful in the 20th century, when Britain itself faced pressures far greater than mechanical failure. After the tower was completed in 1859, Big Ben slowly moved beyond the world of architects, engineers, and officials. It became part of ordinary life. Big Ben was not simply looked at. It was heard, recognized, trusted, and absorbed into the rhythm of London. Over time, it stopped feeling like a new accomplishment and started feeling like something that had always belonged to the city. Then, technology expanded its reach. In 1923, the BBC began broadcasting the chimes. This changed the scale of Big Ben's meaning in a profound way. The sound was no longer limited to those near Westminster. It could now enter homes far beyond London. A local landmark became a national presence. Then came the Second World War. During the war, London endured bombing, destruction, fear, and uncertainty. The Palace of Westminster was damaged, and the area around it suffered. In such times, public symbols are no longer decorative. Big Ben did not disappear into the background. The clock kept working. The bell kept chiming. In a moment of national danger, that continuity mattered deeply. A familiar sound ringing through crisis offers more than information. It offers reassurance. It tells people that not everything has been broken. This is one of the main reasons Big Ben became so closely linked with British resilience. The bell had already survived cracking and repair. Now it stood within a society being tested by war. Its endurance became part of a larger emotional truth. In difficult times, people cling to familiar sounds, places, and rituals, because these things create a bridge between life before the crisis and life they still hope to preserve. Big Ben became one of those bridges. Its symbolic power only grew in the decades that followed. Around the world, Big Ben came to represent London, but also a broader idea of Britain: history, continuity, public tradition, and endurance. In 2012, the tower was officially renamed Elizabeth Tower in honor of Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. The new name did not erase the older identity people loved. Instead, it added another historical layer. Then came the major restoration, completed in 2022, when regular ringing resumed. The work lasted about 5 years and revealed forgotten details, including the original blue clock hands. There is something quietly moving about that. Enduring symbols do not survive automatically. They survive because people choose to maintain them, repair them, and preserve their meaning. That may be the final lesson of Big Ben's journey. It became one of the world's great public symbols because it gathered together so many powerful elements at once: rebuilding after destruction, the ambition of precision, the dignity of repair, the endurance of continuity, and the lasting emotional force of a familiar voice that refused to fall silent. In the end, the story of Big Ben is not only about a bell, a tower, or even London. It is about how a public symbol can carry memory, damage, repair, and meaning across generations. It began in the aftermath of destruction. It was shaped by ambition and technical brilliance. It was marked by failure, yet it continued. It endured war, change, and time itself, and still remained one of the most recognizable voices in the world. That is why Big Ben feels larger than architecture. It represents continuity in uncertain moments. It reminds people that what is cracked is not always lost, and what has been tested is not always broken beyond repair. The deeper lesson is simple but powerful. Real strength is not always the absence of weakness. Very often, it is the ability to remain meaningful after pressure, imperfection, or pain. That lesson still matters in modern life. Many people become discouraged when plans fail, when life changes direction, or when they no longer feel complete. But Big Ben suggests another way of thinking. Something does not need to be flawless to remain valuable. A person does not need a perfect path to keep a purpose. What matters is learning how to continue with dignity, patience, and courage, even after setbacks leave their mark. What do you think makes Big Ben so special? Its history, its sound, or its resilience? Please share your thoughts in the comments so everyone can read different opinions and learn from one another. And please subscribe to support the channel and help bring more meaningful stories in the next videos.